The Solway Lass is the stuff that dreams and adventure novels are made of. As the schooner sat at berth today, she reminded all who saw her of a seafaring era long past. These days, the air of romantic adventure that surrounds the lovely lass has made her a hugely popular cruise ship on Sydney Harbour. The story of the Solway Lass begins in 1902, when she was built in Holland for the North Sea cargo trade. Her 38-metre long metal hull was very seaworthy, and she was used to carry goods between Europe and Brazil. The ship sailed under the German flag, and in 1914 she was captured by France and handed to Britain as war bounty. After that, the lass sailed the Scottish coast smuggling scotch, until she was sold to a Danish owner in 1930. During World War II, the Nazis commandeered the sturdy craft for unknown purposes. The schooner spent the post-war years trading the Baltic, until in 1976 she was bought by an operator in Fiji. In 1983, the Solway Lass was bought by Timothy Lloyd, a chartered accountant turned sailor who fell in love with the by then rusty old lady. Tim has spent more than $1 million to restore the ship to her former beauty.
She's just such a beautiful thing to have and to share with people. She's on Sydney Harbour and people get a lot of joy out of it and thrill out of it, and that's one of the greatest attractions to me, is to be able to share it with people and let them have a thrill of a tall ship.
It's the ship's first visit to Newcastle. It's here for 3 days. What will it be doing on the harbour?
We're doing some charter work for BHP, who have sponsored us up here on Friday, and on Saturday we're doing cruises for the Maritime Museum, and I believe they've got tickets for sale around town, so we'll buy your tickets. The Maritime Museum on Saturday and Sunday, and we'll be doing cruises out to Nobbies and as far as we can go out under sail, we hope, if the wind's in the right direction.
The Pacific Highway on the mid-north coast is fast becoming known as the deadliest stretch of road in New South Wales. Today, members of the State Parliamentary Stay Safe Committee inspected the area in a bid to curb the carnage.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
The regatta is a traditional community event that dates back to 1845. While many of the events are vastly different to the original days, it's still basically a celebration of our harbour. The Navy recognised the event by sending its destroyer, HMAS Vampire, to act as the flagship. It was anchored close offshore in front of the Wharf Road crowd area. The regatta was well patronised by the local sailing community. Many, including the world-class Toronto 505 fleet, held races in the harbour. There was also the grace and colour of the ocean-going yachts, with the Swansea to Newcastle Ocean Race finishing in front of the large crowd on the foreshore. Once again, it was won this year by the highly successful Tobacco Road. While much of the action centred on the water, there were also 7 events on the land. The popular marching koalas combined high school band did their bit, leading a march from the Hunter Street Mall down to the harbour shores. The HP pitched in and sponsored an exciting land and sea event called Coals to Newcastle. It was one of the day's highlights and attracted more than just a little attention. The much publicised Dragon Boat race was also a crowd pleaser. 5 boats manned by 20 paddlers, 1 sweep and a drummer started. 3 boats capsized and more than 60 people ended up in the drink. In Asia, the event has a 2,000-year history. Here, it was contested for the first time. It wasn't hard to tell. To wrap up another successful regatta, there was the Sal Pass Grand Parade. Everything from rowboats to luxury yachts. And so once again, thousands of Novocastrians were reminded today that the harbour really is a great place to enjoy yourself.
Magnificently. We've got the State Age Championships coming to our region.
Our region meaning Lake Macquarie and Charlestown, as well as your Newcastle Association.
That's true. The 3 districts are combining to provide the hard surfaces necessary for those State Age Championships.
And they won't be played anywhere but hard courts these days.
That's quite true. New South Wales has taken a decision that no championships will be played on other than a hard surface. So obviously the districts have to be able to provide top-class facilities to attract those championships to their area.
The kerfuffle in national parks all been worthwhile.
It's been more than worthwhile, Lee, not only for netball but for the region as a whole, because obviously there's economic spin-offs for the whole of the area, and that of course was the whole thrust of having those courts put there.
The upcoming season in netball sees the senior state titles to be played here too.
It does indeed, and we'll have the best in New South Wales and in fact in Australia, because Manly Warringah will be captained by Anne Sargent, who is the current Australian captain, together with of course other teams of quality coming from Randwick, Sutherland, all those areas.
Well, netball's certainly a sport played by plenty, isn't it? And I mean, you're going to have, well, hundreds of kids here. Seniors firstly, and then in 88 with all the kids.
Thousands, in fact, Lee, not hundreds, thousands of spectators plus thousands of competitors.
Members of the Regional Crime Squad descended on the waterfront house at Belmont this morning from both the land and sea. The raid was the culmination of 18 months of surveillance by Newcastle Police, and what was found hidden inside in the walls of the house surprised even the police.
The weapons were 12 handguns, one of which was had a silencer attached, a shotgun, 2 Armalite type weapons, and a can of mace called paralyser, which of course is totally prohibited in Australia. And there was also electric detonators and some key equipment, which the offender has now been charged in relation to those with having housebreaking implements in possession.
The items have been valued at around $12,000. However, police admit that the cash would bring over $25,000 on the black market.
It was indicated to police that the man in possession of the firearms was a firearm collector.
Do you believe that?
Well, we're bound by his answers unless we can disprove it.
Following the raid this morning, a 32-year-old company director from Belmont was arrested on 36 counts of illegal possession of firearms. He's been released on bail to appear again in Newcastle Court on the 7th of April.
The ladies and senior men's teams to compete in the titles are Newcastle's only roller hockey players. Among the strongest members in the men's side is state representative and nominee in the Australian roller hockey squad, Errol Pena. Pena is also wearing the double role of captain coach and will head the team at the World Titles in Mexico next August. Young Brett McCann, who is the state under-15s goalkeeper, is also on the side. In the women's team, state representative Louise Henry will join the other players to try and secure the cup. Although both teams play under the first division in New South Wales, they'll be competing in the third division of the titles. And according to the coach, they're confident about their performance.
We rate second in the state and should gain 2 gold medals in Perth.
Who'll be your toughest competition over there?
8-wheelers from Queensland.
And how strong are they?
They've got 3 Australian players and the Australian goalkeeper in their team.
The Newcastle Roller Hockey Club has been established for the past 12 years. Although there's only 2 senior teams in the city, it's a popular sport throughout the state.
Throughout the state there'd be over 180 senior men players and probably about 40 odd girls at the moment.
It seems like a rough sport. In fact, there's some pretty hard hitting going on out there. Just how dangerous is it?
It's not too bad. A few broken legs, broken arms, that's about all.
More than 400 guests attended the centenary dinner at Newcastle City Hall last night. Among the official guests were President of the Newcastle Chamber of Commerce Laurie Molyneux and Chairman of the Centenary Committee George Keegan. The 36-member contingent from Newcastle's Japanese sister city Ube were also present.
And the
special guest was the Governor-General of Australia, Sir Ninian Stephen, accompanied by his wife. After his address, the Governor-General officially launched 100 Years of Enterprise, a transcript outlining the history of Newcastle and her commercial industries.
The Chamber has a proud history, and this book outlines its contribution to Newcastle's growth, and indeed the growth of the Chamber itself, from a small group of enterprising citizens to a body representing over 600 business firms within Newcastle and the Hunter region. It's quite evident that the Chamber is not content to rest on laurels of the past. You've recognised the challenge that lies ahead, the need to retain a broad commercial and industrial base, a diverse and strong tertiary sector, and the need to remain at the forefront of technological change.
In the 60-odd year history of the race, it's the biggest acceptance that I can find, and just as importantly, there are 2-year-olds there of quality.
The real reason is that the extension of racing into the Golden Slipper, though, isn't it? I mean, it gets them a start in the Slipper to win this one.
That's right. There's no doubt that that's the enticement. The race is a group race by its own qualifications, but there's no doubt that entry into the Golden Slipper is the big lure, and we find stables, the Cummings stables, the Mayfield Smith, Smith and Begg, all nominating big teams trying to get a runner in that final 16 at Rosehill.
Mind you, the prize money here is not to be snoozed at.
No, well, we believe that the $34,000 to the winner here will qualify the winner on that one run. It, of course, is based on prize money standards throughout Australia and just which horses or which 2-year-olds win which races, which will make up the final Golden Slipper field. But we believe, based on previous years, that the $34,000 will see the winner straight into the Golden Slipper.
Well, a record number of entries. Let's hope we get a record crowd and a record investment in the TAB, which would continue to make you smile.
You're right.
So Mr.
The new Assistant Commissioner to the State Government Office in Tokyo rounded up his two-day visit to the hunter at the offices of the Hunter Development Board today. Bruce Piper has had extensive experience in Australian-Japanese relations. For several years he was the Assistant Trade Commissioner for the Federal Government in Tokyo, and also worked for many years with Australian trade companies. His new task is to steer Japanese trade, tourism and investment into the state. Over the last 2 days, he's had an intensive briefing into the hunter region and its industries, and he sees it as a key area for the Japanese.
It is certainly on the tourist side. It is growing and growing, and on the trade side, of course, we've had very strong links for many years, and I can see the next step will be increased investment in Australia, as Japan has now the largest amount of foreign currency of any country in the world, and they're looking for overseas outlets to invest in.
And that must be good news for us.
That's right, particularly for the Hunter Valley being one of the areas which has a large concentration of Australian industry. I would hope that the Hunter Valley could get quite a large proportion of Japanese investment into Australia.
The Kooragang loader has only enough coal stockpiled for 3 more consignments. By the weekend, the giant facility would be idle, according to the General Manager, Dennis Stone.
Well, it will be a very short time, Ray, before we come to a dead stop. KCL has something like coal for 3 vessels, some say 120,000 tonnes. There is another 20-odd thousand tonnes in residue stocks, but that's our total stock. So by the weekend, this weekend coming, we will be bare in the yards.
The story at the Channel loader, operated by Port Waratah Coal Services, is similar, but it has about twice as much coal in stock as at Kooragang and would hold out a little longer. But the repercussions for any further interruptions to coal deliveries to the port are very serious indeed. Dennis Stone of Kooragang says overall tonnages are down, and another increase in the handling charge to coal companies seems inevitable.
The decline in productivity has affected the common charge for putting coal out through the port pretty drastically now. If this strike goes ahead, we'll have further disruptions and consequently further costs. It will raise the common charge for putting coal through the port, which is our concern here at KCL.
An estimated 1,200 lovers of country music heard some of the best performers in the field at the Newcastle Workers Club. 17 artists, including Kentucky Moonshine, Farley Arrow, Jeff Mack and Lucky Star, entertained their audience with both old and new favourites. And it was all in a good cause. Proceeds from the night will be used by the Terminally and Chronically Ill Children's Association. $12,000 is needed to buy a new bus to help with transportation needs for specialised treatment in Sydney and also for recreational outings. Organisers of the variety concert are expecting the same response from country music fans for a similar concert planned in Sydney next week. P&O's luxury cruise liner, the Oriana, has served her company for the past 25 years. Now it's time to make way for other vessels who will take her place on the high seas. She'll make her final voyage in March, but later this month these lucky passengers will set off on the last NBNJ's P&O cruise. Last night in the NBN studio, they met with Oriana directors and officials before they packed their bags, heading on a 13-night cruise around the Pacific Islands. Although it hasn't yet been decided just exactly what will happen to the Oriana, State Manager for P&O Cruises Colin Fossey is sure of one thing.
She will terminate in Sydney, There are options open at the moment for where she will go to, but what I think I can safely say is that she will not go to the breakers' yards, and I think that's rather nice in terms of Oriana.
Will a new cruise ship be taking her place?
Yes, well, she will make way for Island Princess, which is a luxury yacht light ship coming down. She's half the size of Oriana, and she will commence her service in Australia in October of this year.
That's good, John.
I'll just...
Good afternoon, I'm Matthew Clark. One of the region's most important historical projects, the construction of a replica of the first Australian-built steamship, the William IV, is moving along smoothly here at its construction site in Raymond Terrace. Today signalled the completion of 20% of the job, with the ribbing completely finished.